Hello there, everyone at Bangor, and indeed anyone else who might still be watching this video. This is, I guess, what you'd call an intro to the lockdown lecture series. My name's Jude Pullen. I've guest lectured or keynoted, you could say, at the Bangor Design Conference for 3 years. But of course, this year, 2020, has been a bit of a no-go for obvious reasons to do with Corona. So instead, I've been asked to do a lockdown lecture series to try and be of some service, I guess playing to my strengths, which are around prototyping and user research and user experience design. So I hope this is useful and I hope it's insightful. I guess one of the, not to say this is a great time, but I guess one of the silver linings is, unlike a keynote, the nice thing is you can play this back at your leisure. And indeed, one of the things we're hoping to do is make use of the fact that it is online, so to enjoy comments and discussions through all sorts of different multimedia things. But either way, I thought I'd just give you a little bit of what to expect. So obviously, as I've mentioned, it's going to be about the prototyping, design process, showing your work. But I think also, dare I say it, this, without getting too meta, this in itself is, an exercise in lateral thinking and hustling and hidden opportunities. I was basically cancelled from giving a lecture series, and now here I am doing something because of the situation. So as much as it's easier said than done, I'm also saying that I've basically put this together in under 2 weeks. So it's what you'd call a sprint in every sense of the word, whilst juggling all the fun at home and all those sorts of things. So please bear with what is a prototype, but I think it's also quite an exciting thing to see what things might also be retained even after we get through all this sort of hardship and chaos. Because in some ways there might be things which actually you find work really, really well for you. So please do give feedback both to this video and also to your tutors as well. So thanks very much for your time. Part one is going to be going through rough and ready prototyping, the importance of user testing, how to communicate ideas, and so in many ways giving you sort of foundational tools. Whereas part two is trying to think about what does a designer, innovator, or you might even call them a change maker, actually do. So I've had, obviously, as some of you know, broad experiences from working at Dyson, working at startups, and then most recently working at a big company like Lego. But also having done things along the side of those jobs, like BBC Big Life Fix, and also quite recently with Channel 4 with Sir David Jason around sort of reinventing old classic inventions using the household items. So I think my folio has always been very mixed, very, you could say diverse, some would say messy, but I hope in some ways this is giving you examples of how to make that sort of chaos work for you. And I think a lot of it, without giving too much away, is also about just how you choose to frame things. So I also wanted to get into sort of, how might, young people want to try and change the world. And although this is very ambitious as it sounds, there are ways that you can access things that will certainly give you a better chance. It's by no means an easy task, obviously. I certainly haven't done it, but I'm excited to get some references of people who have and discuss what we can learn from them. So part three as well, just finishing up of obviously how to stay motivated in tough times like this, and expanding horizons for new opportunities. So the background, as I said, was that this was a 2-week sprint. It really has been that sort of pace from phone call to go live. I think it's sort of one of those things where it has actually been interesting to do this in isolation. I usually would have had more time to discuss things or more time to deliberate, but it's very much putting pressure on me to say what is the 80-20 or Pareto rule of this. And indeed, please do give candid feedback, because this in itself is an experiment. It's not trying to be perfect. This is version 1.0. So thanks again for your time. The one of the things, if you haven't bought already, please, I would urge you to obviously other services are available, but I've given Amazon Prime links because it is fast and it does still seem to be working, touch wood, at present. I really think to get the most out of what I'm trying to convey here, spending what I feel is a moderate amount of money on a cutting mat, a knife, a ruler, and indeed the boxes that it comes in from packaging, I think would be a really worthwhile investment. And without sounding too flip, I know when I was a student, I certainly got through that on, let's just assume it's a couple of nights out of drinking. So I'd hope that maybe there's a little bit of reserve in the bank there to afford you this. On the other hand, if you really do have the little bit of extra finances and indeed would like to sort of, should we say, take up a seriously good recommendation, which is to say going digital with your prototypes will really give you the edge in the workplace. I say this as someone who is dyslexic. I really don't like coding particularly, but even I find it incredibly useful to solve certain problems. And I think it really elevates the game in product design for you. So I really think it's a great thing to learn. I've tried to be sensitive. There's you can get started for 16 quid all the way through to nearly 80 quid. So it's entirely where you want to go. And then also I've recommended, if you don't have it, a moderately priced soldering set. It is actually quite remarkable how cheap these things are and yet how well reviewed they are. So I really hope some of you could take the offer up on that one. So, quick intro and why it's not always having a plan is okay. So, looking back a little bit at my career, it's been kind of all over the place. And as you can see from here, I've got things from sort of Dyson, very technical things. My final year project was with the NHS, but then I'd also done things like an Erasmus year in Norway, designing whiskey packaging for literally a one-man band distillery. So really quite unusual. I think without going through this blow by blow, as obviously you can see my stuff on LinkedIn and my website, but it's fair to say that I've also done little sort of quirky projects on the side, like just making wind-up toys or sort of sculpture from cardboard. And I've even done ceramics for 6 years at an earlier part in my life. So I think it's always good to just show these sorts of things. Stepping back, however, I wanted to sort of make a little bit of an observation that these very disparate experiences, quite often you tend to put things in chronological order. So as you can see across here, it's very linear. And of course, you can layer on all the sort of various sort of bragging rights of various big name companies and some smaller name companies. I could even look at this through sort of geography. I could look at this again through sort of fields and specialisms. But I think what's important isn't for me to say try and emulate what I've had 10 years of experience. My point is to say, why do things chronologically and linearly always? So just to reassure you, this isn't going to be a blockchain lecture, but I do sort of find it's one of those things that it's interesting to look at how information has changed and how networks have changed. And so I was using this metaphor of a centralized network looking like this, a decentralized network looking like that, and a distributed network being considerably more interconnected. And so I felt it was kind of fun to actually put my project in little clusters and just work through how the groupings looked like. And I thought it was kind of interesting how it clearly isn't a centralized process. Even decentralized, I feel, is a much better example. But what I felt over time is that there was essentially compound knowledge. And so it really did feel a lot more like a distributed network. And in many ways, it felt as if the reason it's fading is that I feel as if the individual projects receded. And actually, it was a collective experience that I was developing as a young professional. So it started off being me, which is not a flip insult comment. It's just to say that is the nature of how you start. You start with yourself. So then it felt like I was emerging themes and values and things that I felt passionately about within the field of design. And then I felt it actually was less about me and more about the networks and ideas and people that I had connections with. So I really love this facet of design and how it builds. So looking at this, I really think it is sort of, for me, it's sort of more of I like looking at the whole experience together. And I would like to think that prospective employers for me do. But I hope by breaking this down and trying to demystify it for you, it makes sense why some of these weird little things that I've done on the side actually make sense when compounded over time. So talking a little bit about people and prototypes, basically I started small. And I thought it was really worth pointing out, if you really don't believe me, and I know this is one of the things that it's hard to communicate, but I am not naturally an extrovert. I'm someone who feels it's like going to the gym. I've had to build up a muscle on being able to switch on my ability to communicate and express myself. He said struggling to do so just then. But I wanted to make the point that actually what's incredible about the internet is this. Honestly, this is Spencer Nugent's YouTube channel, and I contacted him some years ago. And really, most people actually have their email accessible, which is quite extraordinary. I don't know whether that gives them a lot of spam, but essentially, you can just drop him an email and be like, "Hey, what up?" And of course, he's going to be busy, and you need to be respectful. And it's good to sort of make sure that you compose an email which is sensitive and respectful of his time, but also, I would say, explain to you why it means so much to reach out to that particular individual rather than just, "Hey, can I get some free stuff?" So I would like to think in hindsight I played it right, but I could have just caught him on a really good day. So there is also a bit of luck involved. So he actually inspired me. Sorry, in case I didn't explain it, he does a sketch a day of a sort of industrial design and technical drawing nature. So do check it out. But he was basically a big influence on me setting up design modeling, which definitely isn't a model a day, but it was sort of close to almost like a technique a day for a couple of months. I was really working through these at quite a good pace. So this was super interesting for me, and as I'm not going to go through this blow by blow, it's just a screen cap, but I was working in card, plastic and foam, not because I hadn't worked at companies like Dyson, which have literally millions on prototyping and fancy machinery and resources. I wanted to make the point that even at a company like that, you still have to cut your teeth showing that you can ideate and generate prototypes using the most basic stuff before you get all the CNC and laser cutting. This then led me as a sort of bit of a ticket, and I've mentioned this in other videos, so I'm not going to always recount the story, but basically I managed to gate crash an IDO event and managed to get a little speaking slot on why cardboard is fantastic. So even though my videos, my website is hardly breaking the internet by anyone's standards, I found a niche and I found people who are interested in that niche. And I think that's what I wanted to communicate is you don't have to be, a celebrity level of influence on Instagram or whatever to make it work for you professionally. So that took me to IDO. For anyone who doesn't know IDO, hugely influential design thinking company and consultancy. And got silly projects like this, looking at sort of, mind control gadgets, on how to meditate and all sorts of stuff. And the point isn't always the serious outcome of these things. It's often the networks and the people that you meet are just terrific. I'll come back to that later, actually. So again, I did this little thing for Raspberry Pi and thought, oh, why don't I make a Raspberry Pi case? And of course, just to deconstruct this, Raspberry Pi was trending at the time. So it was quite a sensible thing to sort of jump on the bandwagon of. And you might be thinking, oh, I'm not the sort of person who would want to jump on a bandwagon. That's far too crass and beneath me. But I would say, do a mixture, do some very avant-garde individualist stuff. That's absolutely fine. But do also learn how to work with what is trending, as I think that is actually a professional skill to show that you can do it if needed to. Because at the end of the day, if you are trying to sell a product, you are needing to be relevant. And by being relevant, it means you are part of the trend. So again, Pete Wood was the guy who basically spotted me, and I kid you not, he had seen my YouTube videos when I think they were under 200 views. So absolutely extraordinary. And also it's worth framing this, that Pete isn't just an awesome person. He was so ahead of the curve because he had, I think, one of the first people I can remember to have was basically called a community manager. And he must have had to put up with so much like laughs and jokes and digs. That's not a real job. Yet, of course, today everything's different. So he was really quite the pioneer and still is. So he brought me into this project of basically working with Mattel and Warner Brothers to basically help with the Superman 2 launch. And we put together this space pod, which went up to just the edge of space. And basically we filmed it all in 4K when 4K was a big deal. And I think it was a Panasonic thing. So it was one of the first 4K cameras to be portable out there. So we prototyped it all in cardboard. And obviously that was my job. And all the other guys were basically doing all the really complex stuff to do with radio tracking and telemetry and all sorts of mad stuff like that. But again, it was all about it being a great team. So you can go check out the video of it going all the way up, and you can actually see the curvature of the Earth. So in all honesty, to anyone who's all about the flat Earth, really, go send one of these up. It's quite extraordinary watching images come back and you can see the Earth curve. It's probably one of the most mind blowing things I've done is watching that feed come back. So quite humbling and extraordinary. So again, wasn't about me. It's about the amazing people I had the pleasure of working with. Another one is you just don't know. Also, someone that you interact with, you might think, oh, okay, nice. This guy Charles just did this, cardboard camera, and I should ask. I should mention this is a recent screenshot, and he had just built this replica cardboard camera. Now, what's interesting is that the views were much smaller when he actually posted this comment, and you can see Charles hasn't even got like epic subscriber numbers. But he was so kind in that he put a shout out to me, and I had absolutely no idea. And he wrote, and he was the nicest guy ever. That he even just sent me one of these 3D prints, and this was back in the day when 3D prints were still expensive and quite novel. And he sent me this little sort of essentially Helios ring case that you could put all sorts of little things in, and he had designed it, and it was just incredible. And I absolutely love the guy. I still follow him. I keep in touch every so often. But what's amazing is you'll probably see the next bit. He went on to win, and the Adam, in case you hadn't figured out from Tested, that's Adam Savage. So you want to talk about, playing the long game. Yeah, I know. I certainly haven't met Adam Savage, but I wanted to point out that sometimes just being generous with something and putting it out there, you just don't know who's going to pick it up. So it doesn't mean that I get invited to Adam Savage's birthday bash or anything like that. It's not at all that sort of gig. But I just think I'm kind of pumped that, those guys technically know the work that I do, even if it's very, very distant. There's this guy with big hair in the UK, and he does good videos on this. So that for me is enough. But if Adam's listening, then give me a call. But anyway, as I mentioned, people who you just don't know where it's going to go. So this is Haiyan Zhang, and she worked at IDEO at the time. I think it was technically Open IDEO, and she allowed me to basically gate crash this party of designers. And so what was really crazy is that I then ended up phoning her and saying, hey, I'm being asked about this thing, which was to become Big Light Fix. And the same with this guy Ross over here, who basically put me up on his floor years ago when I was looking to move to London. And so it was really nice to also say, hey, do you want to be part of this? So it's you just don't know the networks and when things are going to pay off for you in future. So I absolutely love, I can't speak highly enough of this program, and it's just been one of the best things I've ever had the pleasure of doing, and working with such incredible people. So you just don't know. And the emphasis is that you are building success stories. And the emphasis is I'm not even saying that it's a lie, but I'm not using the word fact. I'm using stories, because it's about how you frame things. And the fact that you're building them, I'm really trying to emphasize this is drip by drip by drip. So yes, of course, I've done a lot more than your average graduate, but that really isn't the measure stick that you should be looking for. It should be what is exciting and new for your generation. When I look at new graduates now, I think they're 100 times smarter than I am, but I'm going to be interested to see what they're doing. I remember seeing a video of someone who did a machine learning sorter for Lego bricks. I mean, I wasn't even close to being that smart at his age. So it's just, you just don't know what's out there. And I love that. So again, it's about building those stories through people and prototypes, I think is the most relevant thing here. Is that the prototypes help you understand people, and the people help you understand the prototypes. It is that relationship all the way through. So just to come back to the gear, as I said, go try and get the shopping if you can. That would be great. But I thought I'd also give a bit of resources and inspiration. If you haven't gone through the previous lecture series, it is on YouTube. Please do take a look. It's at Jude Pullen YouTube channel. And it's basically under student and graduate design series here. And I've also created some playlists around instructables of how to build stuff, book reviews, and also just general updates on what I've been up to, usually at a sort of weekly rhythm. So again, you've got the design modeling website, and also I just wanted to sort of say this isn't something that I just get busy just when I've got a deliverable like this. I was just making this morning with my son. I finished making it, which is basically a ramp that clicks together into little segments. You can tell the Lego influence here now. and builds basically a loop the loop that has elastic bands and fires the little car around through a sort of fake flame and knocks over all these little bricks. So there's definitely some techniques there that I think might be fun to use, and I hope it's fun for you guys as well to bring alive the potential that, I haven't spelt it out, if you're wanting to get a job at a toy design company, and it doesn't have to just be Lego, it could be Hasbro or Mattel or any of these big companies, or small startups that are doing really exciting stuff. But being able to show that you can prototype a play experience or any user experience, and this probably, I appreciate I'm faster and more experienced, but realistically, I think a good product design student could do that in, say, 2 weeks. I absolutely believe that. So I hope that's useful. Thanks for everything. And of course, let's use comments. I will try and reply as quickly as I can. And indeed, if technology is with us, we might even try and do some live chats as well at some point in the future. So thanks ever so much. It's a real pleasure. And I hope this is in some ways sustenance for what is a really tough time. But best of luck to everyone and stay safe. Thanks again.